I'm Daphne, or No Pictures. Some of you may know me, some of you may not. So, for those of you who do know me, you know that my mental health is always something that I talk about. It's never something that I'm trying to keep secret. Like, I'm never in a great mental spot. Like, especially not right now with winter and everything. I've got pretty bad seasonal depression as well as just normal depression. It just gets worse with the cold weather. So, yeah, now on to the actual topic of the stream today. I was watching something and I figured it was time to talk about grief. Grief is such a weird concept because you don't think about it and then it happens to you and you're like not even sure what to do with yourself. So, for example, uh, let's go back to 2022 for a moment. Let's talk about Technoblade. So when Technoblade died, I watched the video. I didn't cry at first. I didn't even couldn't believe it. I was like, no, no, no. Launched me into a pretty bad panic attack, so I had my panic attack. And then, you know, things got okay. Things were okay for a while. And then my grandma got diagnosed with cancer. Immediately I started crying. Because you don't think about grief and you think it's gone forever. And then you're back to when you're like 10 years old searching up what happens when people die. And yeah, I'm going to use this example from someone here on YouTube, Haley. I don't know her full tag. I'll put it in the comments if I remember. But yeah, Haley, she released a video about talking about grief, where her way of dealing with grief, well, thinking about grief, is think of you as a box. And then think of, hi, having a pretty heavy discussion. But yeah, hi. So, yeah. So think of grief as a box. And then you're going to think of a box. And then there's a button that's going to be that box is, there's a button and that's grief. Sorry, it's hard to talk about still. And that's a grief. And you're just bouncing around living your life. And as time goes on, that button will get smaller and smaller. And at first, everything will set off the. At first, everything will set off the. At first, everything will set off the box for a while. The button. You should get out of bed and we'll set off the button. But as time goes on, that button will start to be different. And that button will start to shrink. And you think your grief goes away. And then you'll do something and you'll be right back to where you started. Right back to that square one. And you're not sure what to do with yourself again. So that's a brief example of that. And let's go back to when my grandma died in 2022. It was really hard for me. She died. I was doing a show at the time. Like, I was in the middle of getting ready to perform. What show was it? Newsies. I was getting ready to perform Newsies. I was like, still, we had a week until show. And one day in the car, driving there, my dad told me, she was like, hey, Daphne, your grandma died last night. And yet again, I didn't cry. I just had to process. I was like, what? What do you mean? Like, I knew this was coming. Sorry, sorry, sorry. Hold on, I need a minute. Sorry. Okay. So, grief. Yeah. I went to my thing. I survived the whole day. I got home, ran into my room. I cried several hours. Like, I knew it was coming, and I knew that it was going to happen, and I just wasn't ready. It's like, anyways, that happened, and then in 2020, actually 2017, this was a while ago. Okay, so in 2017, my grandfather had a stroke, and I got pulled out of school, and my mom got me and my brothers in the car, and she was like, Paul had a stroke. I'm going to go see him in the ICU, and I'm going to take you guys home. And it's horrible to think, because you don't think it's going to happen, and then it happens to you. And I thought he was going to die. I genuinely thought he was going to die, and that was a really good spot for my family, because my mom had just quit her job and was finding a new one, so I was already really stressed out about that. And essentially, because of my grandma, as I was mentioning earlier, she was sick for a couple years before that. We knew it was coming. We knew she wasn't going to be dead. But one day, she was having a good day. Like, she was feeling great. And me and her went to the mall. My mom just dropped us off and was going to pick us up later. And we went into the Macy's, actually. And I was like, no, we can take the elevator. I don't need anything. We're good. Let's just take the elevator. She was like, no, I can take the escalator. And she did, but she fell. So I was about 10 years old at the time, probably younger. And someone else called 911. And my parents weren't answering their phones. So I called my neighbor, who had just gotten back from a camping trip, like literally a minute prior. And I sounded so nonsensical. I was just like, Mimi fell, go to the hospital. And I had to sit there and I had to tell the EMT what happened. And I was like 10 years old. And I knew what was happening. I just knew that I didn't like it. So I had to go to the hospital in an ambulance with just me and my grandmother. It took about an hour for my parents to get there. So that was. It took about an hour. Yeah. And when they did, first, like, this is why I can't deal with medical staff anymore. Like, medical staff for me is always a problem. Sorry. Sorry. This is hard. Sorry. So, anyways, I got to the hospital and walked past all these rooms of people who were sick, and I wasn't sure what to do with myself, because I saw all of these people and I was just like, I just want to help you. I just want to help you, and you can't be helped. And there was my grandmother, who I wasn't allowed to see because I was under the age of 16 and they had to put her in the ICU. I wasn't allowed to see her. I wasn't allowed to do anything. I just had to sit in the waiting room, not knowing if she was okay. My parents weren't there. I had nothing. And all I wanted to do was make sure my grandmother was okay. So eventually they brought me back. They realized they had to, and they did. And it was horrible. She had this here, like right here. She had a giant, like, gashing wound. And it was very, very horrifying. It was something that I wasn't ready for. And it was something I don't think I'll ever be ready for. Because of that site, I've got moderate to severe PTSD from that incident and a couple other ones related to that. Sorry, hard to talk about, as I was saying. So yeah, that was the thing, and for several years that was just how I lived, constantly on the verge of grief, and I still don't think I've dealt with it. I do not deal with my grief in a healthy way. Like, I just lose myself in work and school. I just don't do anything. People are like, no, Daphne, it's fine. You can grieve. That's my way of grieving. It's not. I did the same thing when Hector Blade died. Probably gonna do the same thing when my grandfather dies. I know he's probably not gonna make it through a couple more years. I know he's not gonna be able to see my high school graduation, and that's a really sad thought to me. I don't even know how far he's gonna make it. He's healthy, but he's old. He's 86, and he's still suffering impacts from that stroke. It was the left side of his brain, I think. It might have been the right side. What was the side that affects your left hand? Because that was the side that was affected. So I think it was his right side. Yeah, it was his right side. He had a stroke to his right side of his brain, and it was horrible. And so yeah, grief is personal. Like, some healthier ways to grief is find community. Like, talk to people, share their memory. Don't get lost in your grief. The thing about grief is people lose themselves in it, and that can result in some not so healthy things happening, even taking your own life, which would be horrible. And I seriously hope that no one ever does. I know it's going to happen, and I know it does happen. And I know those are things I've had to deal with. So it's just, I don't want anyone to have to go through that. So you have to, like, deal with life. You've got to be like, okay, this is happening. This is my life. People are going to be scared. Things are going to be scared. Things are going to be hard, but just deal with it to the best of your ability. I know it can be a struggle, but yeah, grief is complicated pretty much, and it's hard to talk about, really, because when you think about grief and you search, like, what happens when someone dies, nobody knows. Nobody knows what happens when you die, and it's horrifying. Just that feeling of unknowing. You're like, I want them to be safe. I want them to be okay. But you know, deep down, they might not be. That's something you've just had to learn. That not everyone's going to be okay. And yeah. Thanks for listening to my rant. This will probably be uploaded as a VOD and probably actually as a proper YouTube video. So, yeah. Thanks for watching, I suppose. Sorry, I don't know how to end this, like, because I can't just do my normal, like, happy outro, because this isn't the time for a happy outro. This was a very dark and heavy discussion, and I'm not ready. I don't know how to end it. So I guess bye, have a great rest of your day or night, and think about it. One last reminder, you can't heal in the same environment where you got sick, and don't take things for granted. We could all, everything is a luxury. Thank you. Goodbye.